Let me ask a real quick question. I'll start with Commissioner Starks. Do our friends, the foreign satellite companies who are now operating in the C-band, have a license from the FCC?
Yes.
They do. All right, let me give you an overview of one person's point of view, and then I'll ask you to react to it rather than trying to go through this question by question. Many years ago, the FCC gave our friends, the foreign satellite companies, the right, the privilege of using the C-band. They've been using it. They have spent a lot of money on satellites and other operational costs to use the spectrum. They paid nothing for the spectrum. To their credit, being the smart business women and smart businessmen that they are, they've made a lot of money off of it. The FCC has the authority. I won't read you the law because you know the law better than I do. I think it's section, what, 316?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Or 336. FCC can modify a license at any time if, quote, such action will promote the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Okay. Everybody knows that the FCC, even though you grant a property interest, and I'm not convinced that I'm uncertain about what kind of property interest the C-band satellite companies have, but you can, if you need to, you can take it back at any time. I don't blame them for trying, but the foreign satellite companies came up with this swell idea to let them handle the auction, and they would keep the money, and they would pocket between $60 and $80 billion that we could use, among other things, for rural broadband. You got a lot of pressure to do that. They pounded on you. They hid in the shrubbery at your house. You came home trying to get you to do it. To your credit, you said, we're not doing this. This is taxpayer money. We're going to do what we always do, bid it out. You've decided to bid it out. You've come up with a figure of, I'll call it $10 billion as incentive payments, and between $3 and $5 billion to cover the costs of the incumbents moving. And I don't understand how we came up with the $10 billion. I understand the reason for it. You want to avoid litigation. You're going to get sued anyway. The small satellite companies are going to sue the bejesus out of you. Our friends, the foreign satellite companies, aren't happy with the way you split the money. They're going to sue you. The issue is not whether you get sued. The issue is whether somebody's going to get an injunction and stop you. So why do you worry about the litigation? Why don't you just go forward, and they're going to litigate anyway? I agree with you that Congress acts slowly, and I don't know. I think we can come up with a bill, but as I've said publicly, I don't understand where we got the $10 billion figure. That's a lot of jack. And the satellite companies aren't even going to accept it. That's what it looks to me like. And we're setting a precedent here. I mean, spectrum is a finite resource. We're going to be moving around a lot. What's going to happen when the next time you have to go to somebody and move them? They're going to I don't blame them. It's good business. They're going to say, pay me or trade me. And I think that's why it's very important that we get this $10 billion figure right. I don't understand why you don't say, I've got a bill that says $1 billion, which I think is a lot of money. And I just don't understand how we came up with a $10 billion figure. And I don't understand your authority to do it. As I read the case law, it just says you have the authority force the bidders to pay for reasonable location costs. And anyway, that's one point. I used the whole damn 5 minutes. I'd just like you to quickly give me your reaction. Am I wrong or am I right? Let's start with Commissioner Carr.
Senator, thank you for your leadership and for your advocacy on this. I think it's helped in terms of where we ended up. Look, I think we do have significant legal authority at the FCC to have just said, as you pointed out, this isn't a real property interest. We're taking the spectrum back. There would have been several practical problems if we'd gone down that path, though. One,
do they have a property interest?
they do not have a real property-style interest in spectrum.
Do the foreign satellite companies have a property interest?
No, that's why we have the authority to take these licenses back, is because they aren't treated with the same dignity as a property interest.
Okay, so how'd you come up with the $10 billion? Why didn't you go to them and say, gentlemen, ladies, we can do this the easy way, the hard way. We're going to offer you $1 billion. Please take it.
Yeah.
Because it's better than $0.
I like that approach. What we did in the decision was, because we're...
And they're going to say, we're going to sue you. And at that point, you say, here's my iPhone. Look up the courthouse on Google, and you can go, because we're going to get sued anyway.
Right. Like you, I'm comfortable easy way or hard way. What the order walks through is we relied on 4 to 5 different factors and variables in terms of...
I know all that. But how did we come up with the $10 billion?
That's how we came with the $10 billion. We looked at those 4 to 5 separate variables. We have some equations that we walk through. And part of it is, my colleagues have suggested...
Yeah, but here's I get it. Okay, you got an incredible staff, and you sat down and you did a quantitative analysis of the potential value to the bidders of what they would pay to get the incumbents off. And that's all well and good, okay? I can go, when I go buy a car, I can go Blue Book and go over here and say what they paid, and I researched it exhaustively, but nothing stops me from going in and taking the figure that the experts say and cutting it in half. We're negotiating here.
Right.
Why didn't you do that?
Because on the Administrative Procedure Act, it's separate from a negotiation like that. And my colleagues suggested, for instance, that there was some sort of backroom deal. The reality is there's no deal. What we have to do is we have to go through these factors and this methodology that kicks out a number, and that's our offer. And they can take it or they can leave it. And at this point, we don't know for certainty what they're going to do because they haven't indicated that they're going to take it. In fact, one company has suggested they may not take it. I think it's in their interest to, but the number was derived from the record, the math, and the analysis that because of the Administrative Procedure Act, it's not a iterative negotiation.
You're telling me the law requires, I want to be sure I understand. You're telling me that the law requires you to offer the $9.7 billion?
There is a range of final numbers that methodology would have kicked out that probably could have survived.
You're telling me that the law requires you to follow this methodology?
I'm not aware of another methodology that we could have used to arrive on that. I don't want to speak with certainty, but
here's a methodology. Yeah. Satellite companies, we love you. Yeah. But you don't own the spectrum.
Right.
We need it back. We have the authority to take it back. You knew going in that we could do that. We're not dislocating you. We're just moving you to another part of the spectrum. And by God, even though you hadn't bought a satellite since God was a corporal, we're going to even buy you new satellites.
Right.
And on top of that, we're going to offer you $1 billion. And we hope you'll take it, because if you don't, then we're going forward and you can sue us. They're going to sue you anyway. I went over too long. Senator Coons, I'll come back.